Hello, everyone there. I can see that today is going to be a little bit of struggle here with my connections because it seems to be that it seems to be that I have some issues here with my connection here today. So everything seems to be very slow. I don't know what happened, but it's okay. So we continue today with a topic that for me is quite new, which is intersectionality in microaggressions. Well, microaggressions, I am, well, we all know, we can at least imagine what they are, but the intersectionality is a technology that I didn't come across before, so for me is a new one. And as we learn about the bias, it's important that we are also aware of these two key concepts, intersectionality, or how women can experience compounding biases due to other aspects of their identity, and microaggressions, which are subtle or explicit comments and actions that signal disrespect. To refresh your memory, we have already covered here unconscious bias, performance bias, attribution bias, likability bias, maternal bias, affinity bias. And today we will talk about these two concepts that they are underlined behind all the biases that happen out there. I had prepared a video here on the intersectional bias, but I'm not really sure if I'm going to be able to present it. I keep trying until the end, so let's see what happens. But for now, let's continue here with the definitions of intersectionality. Bias isn't limited to gender. Women can also experience biases due to their race, sexual orientation, disability, and other aspects of their identity. Well, we are talking here about women, but let's be clear that these also apply to men. But one important question here, let's start with our icebreakers. Here's my questions to you. Compared to men without disabilities, how much more likely are women with disabilities to hear demeaning remarks at work about themselves or others like them? What do you think? I'll give you a second to think about it. In the meantime, I try to make my video to work, but it's not really working here. Let's see. Okay, the answer is almost nearly 3 times more likely. So somehow people find that to make remarks, demeaning remarks to people are a fun thing to do or something to push them down, to affect their confidence, and they do this even more with women. Another question here for you. In one study, job applicants with wide-sounding names got what percentage more callbacks than identical job applicants with black-sounding names? Never thought about that. I don't know if you did, but it seems to be that those things happen more often than we would like them to. So the answer here is it led to 50% more callbacks, the equivalent of adding 8 years of work experience. Very interesting. These are not my findings, people. These are findings from Leling research together with McKinsey and Company research for over 7 years. So this is what we are bringing here. So these are their findings. So the last Question for you today here on the icebreakers. Compared to straight men, how much more likely are lesbian and bisexual women to feel like they can talk to colleagues about their lives outside of work? Do you have an answer for that? Think about a second. Okay. The answer is around 4 times more likely not to talk about their personal lives as homosexual or lesbian or bisexual at work. So here we go, some facts. So I talked about intersectionality, and I still want to get to the video, but it seems to be that it is challenging me here, but we continue without it then. So let's go. So we learn about intersectionality. Intersectionality. It's about different biases that women and everybody else faces that not only related to gender, but their race, their culture, and many other aspects. Let's go back to everyday situations here to see what is happening in the world out there and how can we talk and tackle those and why they matters in the first place. So a coworker says, I don't see color. How many times you heard that? I heard that quite a few times. And here is why it matters. This comment denies a fundamental part of people's identity. It also suggests that if we choose to ignore racism, it will go away on its own. In fact, many studies show that when people or institutions claim to be colorblind, they often perpetuate racism by failing to take action against it. To combat racism, you first have to face it head on, then actively work to challenge racist stereotypes and behavior, both your own and those of others. So you know what to do in this situation. You could ask a question to make your coworker reflect. What's wrong with acknowledge someone's race? Everyone's identity is unique and should be appreciated. Explain that while you understand they think they are being fair and objective, not seeing color can make racism worse. Point out that this way of thinking signals that someone is not interested in challenging racist behavior, whether or not that was the intention. And why it happens. Your coworker might wish to deny that racism still exists, or because they don't want to deal with it, or they may be falling into the trap of thinking that not seeing color is a way of avoiding racism when in fact it perpetuates racism. So now you know. It's all about taking a position and acknowledging and respecting people for who they are without trying to sugarcoat things. The next drink is about hiring. This is all under the intersectionality. In a meeting about hiring, colleagues agree the most qualified candidate is a trans woman, but worry about how clients will respond. Have you faced situations similar like that? I haven't, but let's see what they say about it. What can we do about it? Why it matters first. It is inappropriate to speculate about how clients would respond to someone's gender identity, just as it will be about their religions, faith, or ethnicity. The discussion also harms company culture because it could make it feel acceptable to discriminate against trans people. So we have to be very careful, you see. What to do? Remind the group that they all agreed that she was the most qualified candidate, and push back against the idea that you should give up on the strongest hire. You can also point to some of her specific qualifications and experience that fit the criteria for the role. So I repeat, you can also point to some of her specific qualifications and experience that fit the criteria for the role. Always bring the facts and why it happens. Transgender people often experience workplace mistreatment, including difficulties getting hired and promoted. This mistreatment is often due in part to concerns that clients and other employees have negative attitudes towards transgender people. In this case, allowing such concerns to determine who gets hired results in discrimination against trans women. So here what I see is companies really have to implement to start creating and considering having some kind of education to their employees towards all different types of gender, because they are there and we need to embrace them to bring diversity. We have been talking a lot about diversity, and this is why these biases is so important, such a hot topic, because when we have biases, especially the unconscious ones, but although they're very intertwined, as we saw the days before, if you didn't see it, go there and take a look, and that we need to be educated on that to create a more fair and diverse environment. So let's go into the microaggressions now. What exactly are them? I still cannot make the video work. It's sad, but let's see. Microaggressions are comments and actions that demean or dismiss someone based on their gender, race, or other aspect of their identity. Some groups of women experience them even more often. For example, Black women are nearly 2.5 more likely than white women to hear someone at work express surprise about their language skills or other abilities. How sad is that, huh? Lesbian or bisexual women and women with disabilities are far more likely than other women to hear demeaning remarks about themselves or others like them, which I find really nasty and disrespectful. This is my own opinion. Microaggressions are, let me put here for you, microaggressions are a form of day-to-day discrimination directly at those with less power. And some people, to feel more powerful, they use that as a way to intimidate others or to push others down or aside or out of the way. They are an all too common occurrence in the workplace and are often rooted in various types of bias. For example, performance bias might lead colleagues to question a woman's judgment in her area of expertise or mistake her for someone at more junior level. How many stories I believe all of us have about that, of women being in a meeting. I have a particular one for a good friend where she was leading a meeting and she had a male assistant with her, and the meeting was all men. And when they got into the meeting, they addressed the guy as the meeting leader, the client's contact who came for the meeting, and sent her for the coffee. Very, very, very difficult situations here in which she handled very well. So, but this is a very common misjudgment. And because women experience more types of bias at work, they also face a wider range of microaggressions than men. And we know that microaggressions lead to health issues because these are one of the underlying reasons for burnout because of bullying. Microaggressions equals bullying. For the next topic in microaggressions, for women with other marginalized identities, such as women of color and LGBTQ plus women, microaggressions are often even more pronounced. Compared to women of other races and ethnicities, Black women are nearly 2.5 times more likely than white women and more than 3 times more likely than men to hear someone in their workplace express surprise about their language skills or other abilities. I mentioned that before. Lesbian women, bisexual women, and women with disabilities are far more likely than other women to hear demeaning remarks about themselves or other like them and to feel that they can't talk about their personal lives at work. Very important. And here, the last point in microaggressions. Microaggressions may seem insignificant when viewed as isolated incidents, but when they occur day after day, as they often do, their impact builds up and takes a toll. Whether intentional or unintentional, these insults and invalidations signal disrespect. It's hard for any employee to bring their best self to work when they're often underestimated and slighted. Women who experience microaggressions are 3 times more likely to regularly think about leaving their job than those who don't. So for the company, these represent losing capital, people's capital, losing their assets. Companies have to start understanding that their assets, their true assets, are the people, not the money they make. And here in these microaggressions, I want to comment something that happened yesterday. I was watching Hard Talk in BBC, and the interviewer is Stephen. I have to get his name here to get it right. 1 second. His name. Let's see here. Stephen Sakuran. Sakuran, I think that's the way it pronounced. And he interviewed an Iranian comedian. And this Iranian comedian, who I don't remember the name, I'm sorry, they were talking about what's happening today with all this, that we are now becoming more aware of the language we use to address with people. But then what happens with about the freedom of speech? Because when we are talking about this bias, how we have to communicate, the effective communication that we have to use when we are talking to people, that we cannot just talk anything and just get by with it. So we need to be aware of now. And some misjudgment on that and misuse can lead to serious problems. And the topic was that some comedians are claiming that they don't have the freedom of expression anymore, that this is affecting their comedy, etc. And this Iranian comedian said that he disagreed with, I applaud him, because he said that fun is fun. And he never needed to use this kind of fun where you diminish others, where you even use your audience, embarrass your audience to make other people's laugh, which in the past, I would say everybody would laugh. Today, we feel a little bit, can I laugh or not? Right? We are becoming more aware of those things. But of course, there's a thin line there of what we can play around. This is why always self-deprecation jokes are safer, because you are insulting your own self or talking about bad things about your own self. So nobody can complain about it. But this guy said something very interesting. He said that for him, fun is fun, and he never had to use that. He always found ways to be creative and bring some intelligent comedy to his stages. And I applaud him because I believe that's the thing. When, as there's also a quote we say, when you're not winning the argument, when you're not winning the cause, change your argument. And that's exactly what it is. Freedom of speech doesn't mean that you can say anything. You have to find the language to win your cause. Okay, so let's continue now here with some working environment, working place examples in those topics of intersectionality and microaggressions. Let's go into reviews and promotions now. In a meeting about promotions, someone asks an Asian coworker, someone says an Asian coworker needs to work on her communication skills before she's ready for the next level. Well, I for one, because this is my topic, communication, effective communication, and I have many professional women who come to me to work on that. That is okay, and that is good to be aware of that. We can always improve, and especially all of us who has to work and to communicate out there in not our native language. We face challenges, we make mistakes. I do make mistakes, I'm aware of that. Some mistakes I am aware, some I'm not, but that should not become an obstacle for my competence, for delivering my work. And why it matters when such comments are put at the table. These comments may unfairly rule her out for promotion, which could mean that your company won't fully leverage her talents and will miss out on her unique perspective. The company might lose their capital, their asset. To add to the capital and to add to the asset. What to do? If communication skills aren't key for this promotion, okay, for example, it's a technical or internal facing role, say so. If communication skills are important, then ask for examples of how she can improve and suggest sharing the feedback directly with her. If your colleague can't offer good examples, push back. You could explain that vague feedback can open the door to bias and say you are concerned that this woman is being unfairly judged for not a good reason or for no good reason. So why it happens? Women receive negative feedback in their communication style much more often than men do, no matter how they communicate. They are too quiet, too loud, too gentle, too assertive, and even aggressive. I was called aggressive. I wrote about it. If you want to check my post, I was called aggressive. I was called arrogant. Different, yes. This dynamic can be exacerbated for Asian women because of stereotypes. Research shows that Asian women tend to be typecast as too quiet and submissive. So people tend to assume they lack strong communication skills. And when they do assert themselves, this defies our expectations that Asian women will be quiet and gentle. And so they tend to be criticized as abrasive. So if you have this kind of mindset, there's no way to win this equation in this situation, because if you are too quiet, you are too quiet. If you are quiet, you're too quiet. If you are confident and assertive, you're too much. So ladies, for you out there, my personal advice from my experience for working with women for over a decade is work on yourself to improve yourself always, but feedback is always someone's opinion unless they come with facts. This is what is a constructive feedback when someone brings facts. If they bring facts that yes, you have some communication skills that would affect your role, you can put yourself to work on that, because that should not also be something to stop you to taking a position. You can say, okay, I will work on that. And then you can be evaluated afterwards. But put it aside when a communication is not really such part of the criteria, the requirements for the role. But it's still, like I would say, we all need communication. And effective communication is important for everything. And effective communication is vital, crucial for good leadership. So even if it's not in the role, we all should be looking into improve our communication skills. And when I say communication skills, it's not really about making small mistakes. We all do make small mistakes when we are not speaking our native language. Even in our native language, we do make some small mistakes. You have to evaluate also the mistakes you make, how relevant they are, because you can just get by with those small mistakes to get started with, and then you can improve. So don't allow to be pushed back and aside with a comment like that. So our next one about meeting dynamics. And here is what it is. In a meeting, someone says to a Latina like me, I can see you're getting fired up, when she has been speaking firmly but calmly. And this is what I felt when the comment that I was arrogant in the situation. You can go and read my article about that. I was taken by surprise, and it was a shock, but I just realized that afterwards, analyzing that I was just being me, full of energy and giving my opinion, my views in a very open manner. And a man, felt that I was arrogant. Anyway, lesson learned. So statements like this can quickly shut someone down. It's not fair to your coworker who is trying to present her ideas. It's not fair to everyone in the meeting who could benefit from her insights. And it reinforces harmful stereotype that Latinas are overly emotional compared to other groups, and that women who assert themselves are angry or combative. So, what to do? Speak up, say you'd like to hear your coworker's point of view, and push back on the suggestion that she's too emotional or irrational. You could say, Jennifer doesn't seem heated to me. I think she's making some really great points. Jennifer, can you go on? So here is the job of the meeting leader to be attentive to this and not allow this and interrupt, and not allow this to happen, interrupt, or some of the allies that Jennifer might have in her meeting that will raise a voice to support her. Or even Jennifer, you can reply kindly, not at all. I'm not heated up at all. I'm just making my point. And here is what I have to say, and continue. Why it happens? Research shows that Latinas tend to be labeled as heated or emotional when they are merely speaking without being differential. This is rooted in the pervasive stereotype that Latinas are too intense, feisty, and emotional. There we go. We can be intense, emotional. Yes, we can. However, this should not be brought in our work environment as something negative against us. Okay, so let's be aware of all these biases can affect all of us. We are focused on women here. as I said before, but this affects everybody. And when a work environment is not a good one, is not one which is fair to everybody, even if, like you say here, we are talking about women and we are pointing out how it's unfair to women in the workplace and beyond. But a workplace which is not fair to women, how fair is to men too? So we have to consider that as well. And I'll finish today. Unfortunately, I could not run the video today, but let's see. Tomorrow we'll talk about the biases in virtual workplaces. I'm very curious about that because, as I said, I'm learning here with you about this topic and I'm finding it fascinating. And I hope you are feeling inspired as well. And if you want to learn more, you can go back to the videos to my in my YouTube channel. There are all the videos have been stored there, public. You can watch them, or you can even go to Leaning platform, leaning.org, and search the information there. Of course, they don't have all the videos with me there. They have the information, but you can dig into the information there too. Okay, so see you tomorrow, and we will continue with bias in virtual workplace. So, till tomorrow. Thank you for now.